On this episode, we discuss the drop in tourists to Thailand and ponder some of the proposed causes and solutions.
So if you've ever pondered the differences between long-term cultural tourism and short-term dopamine tourism, you'll enjoy this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee Krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian from Calgary who refused to wear a cowboy hat during Stampede, so was forced out in 2001, landing in Thailand and starting a new cowboy hat-free life.
You could have been a Thai cowboy.
Man, don't get me started on cowboy hats. Unless you're an actual cowboy, should not be worn. That's my stance.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago. Fell in love with monitor lizards, which is weird because Thais consider them the lowest life form on Earth. So I never left.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, man.
I like them. I think they're kind of cute.
Yeah. I like them too.
All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chat about how I tried to get my students interested in objectively awesome and important topics in my class, even if they can't understand why they are awesome or important. Greg's visit to the Yasatone Rocket Festival, which he finally reports on, and a short discussion about the ease with which you can get your own bespoke household objects made after seeing an inspiring photo online. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular pack episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And before we get started, I want to read a quick message we got from our pal David. He listened to our previous episode where we talked about the strange ways in which Thai language has integrated some English words into their lexicon. And his message says, "Your weird Thai pronunciation podcast reminded me of an anecdote from my late second cousin, David Glickman. He was a respected Bangkok gemologist who lived in Thailand for almost 5 decades, spoke fluent Thai, and invited me to visit the kingdom for the first time in 1982. Man, that was long before we got here. He's
For
an OG.
sure.
He was discussing American football with a Thai friend who was a fan of the team known as the Alaska Boys. Now, David was unaware that the 49th state had ever fielded a major league squad. That is, until he figured out that his friend meant the Dallas Cowboys.
That's great.
The Alaska Boys. I like it.
I love these mispronunciation, things. There's a serious side to language, especially trying to learn it correctly. But man, when you just stay loose, there's so many funny language stories.
Did you see the interview with that Australian guy who put an ad in the paper and it said he was looking for someone to rent his house and he said no Asians?
Oh, really?
And so the newspaper showed up at his door, like knocking on his door, like, "Do you have any comment on why you say you don't want Asians?" And he's like, "Well, they're terrible. They're terrible people. They're just looking to steal your money, and I don't need them. I can do this all on my own." They're like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" And it went back and forth until they figured out that he was talking on the phone and gave the ad, the text of the ad to the person on the phone, but he meant to say agents.
Oh no,
like
agents.
Real estate agents. The guy wrote Asians.
That's great. Even Australians can't understand Australians.
That's funny. All right. Well, in this episode, we are going to discuss a few stories that have popped up in recent days, which comment on the dip in inbound tourists that Thailand is seeing. Now, as you probably know, tourism accounts for about 12% of Thailand's GDP, so even a small drop in the number of tourists can have massive and far-reaching consequences. And one of the criticisms made is that Thailand is pushing cheap, chintzy vacations, which the article calls dopamine tourism, that don't offer much beyond very surface-level experiences. Crime, overdevelopment, and other criteria are also playing a role, and tourists are choosing to spend their money in Vietnam, Japan, Malaysia, and other places at Thailand's expense. Now, this is something that, I think you and I are qualified to talk on, Ed, because we live here for a long time and we still like being tourists in Thailand.
Sure.
And we know a lot of people who come here as tourists.
Sure. Well, I find this fascinating because up until just maybe 6 months ago, I feel that the recovery from COVID has been basically all positive. We did a show on it, or at least talked about it on the bonus show, that
Right.
that the projection was that this year's numbers would be greater than before COVID, and all the news was basically positive until shit happened. Basically, that's the answer. Shit happened. One thing, so this is what we're going to talk about on the show, like what happened or what's gone wrong, because listeners, essentially in the last few months, there's been a fairly significant dip, especially among Asian tourists to Thailand, particularly the Chinese. But now it looks like the numbers for this year are going to fall way short of projections. So it's essentially there's been a reversal where just 1 year ago everything was positive, and now it's a bit of a nightmare if you're in the tourism industry. And so in terms of like what happened, one obvious thing is the earthquake. That scared people here, and I think internationally it scared some people. To me, I think that once it was kind of figured out, like after a week or 10 days, I don't see rationally why it would discourage tourists, but I'm sure it discouraged some.
Yeah, probably a small amount. It didn't help. There's not a lot of earthquake tourists coming to Thailand. Yeah.
But there were some other events that have really freaked out other Asian tourists, especially Chinese. So we'll get into that specific thing in a second. But the article that Greg and I stumbled upon was actually making a larger argument. So I guess the issue is this: is this downturn due to some specific events, kind of like bad luck, or is it due to some problem in the Thai tourist industry? And I think that this article is going with the latter theory. And you and I both mentioned before that we love the phrase dopamine tourism. But essentially this article is trying to say that Thailand offers like a quick hit of dopamine, but that's it. So kind of the argument is that Thailand's appeal to tourists is somewhat superficial, and that eventually they want maybe some deeper experience or more meaningful experience, and they're going to go to places like Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, etc. So I'm not sure I agree with this, but I think that's what the article is trying to say. That that Thailand represents beaches, nightlife, like red light districts, maybe good food, but that's it.
I agree, but I think the article is flawed a little bit. I think their stance is flawed a little bit, because Thailand still offers an incredible, vast amount of real, authentic, culturally rich experiences. But I think they're just being crowded out by these dopamine tours, which are much easier to sell. They hit faster. They've got a quick turnaround. People are in and out. And it's hard to compete against that kind of stuff because it's sexy. It's easy to sell. And who doesn't like to come to Thailand and have a good time?
I might have a problem with the whole concept, because isn't all tourism dopamine tourism? People don't go on a holiday to get a lecture about the culture of Sicily. They really don't. It's like maybe some people do, but I mean, the average person wants to have fun for 1 or 2 weeks. Like, I'm not sure so I think tourism is short term by definition. It's only repeat, so, our show, which we've made clear over the years, is not really specifically designed for tourists. It's designed for expats and repeat tourists. So repeat tourists, they might want something deeper, but your average tourist is what, 10 days, 14 days? Like, what else is there besides dopamine?
Well, it depends how you define dopamine, right? I mean, like we talked about on the bonus show, what dopamine for me is not necessarily dopamine for my son. I get a thrill out of watching Star Wars. He's yawning. But, going to a beach is not, who doesn't like that? But going to a party on a beach or a full moon party, I would hate that. I hate doing that stuff. Other people love coming to Thailand and going to watch, kon dances or water puppet or shadow puppet theaters or something like that. A lot of people might find that dreadfully boring and wouldn't even consider it. So what does dopamine tourism mean? I think they're talking about the low end party, in and out, Khao San Road, Samui type of people. The low quality tourists, as the TAT would put it.
I guess so. But I think I'm with you. I'm not even sure I agree with the concept. I think maybe all tourism is dopamine, as you pointed out. It's just a question of what is your dopamine. But I remember when I first got here, and I wasn't a tourist. I was coming here to work, but I was still doing touristy stuff for the first couple of months. I was effectively a tourist, and I remember that I think it was in my second week. I wanted to go. I'd read about Thai dance or seen something about Thai traditional dance, and I was in the office and I was talking to some of the staff, and they recommended a restaurant. I know this is kind of a touristy thing, but there are restaurants where you buy a meal but then there's a Thai traditional dance performance. Yeah, dinner theater.
Dinner theater, basically.
It is a Thai thing or a tourist thing. But that was like my second week here, and so I think as you pointed out, I think the kind of cultural stuff, it's pretty easily accessible. I think the Tourism Authority of Thailand, this is kind of their thing. I mean, they know that beaches are generic. They know that cheap beer and like buckets of whiskey shots, like they know that any country can do that.
But I just think that money talks, and I can't help but think back to the time that one of the few times that I did partake in the quote unquote dopamine tourism thing when my mom was here years ago.
You guys went partying. You and your mom went partying. You did some shots.
Full moon, baby. No, we joined like a snorkeling tour with a bunch of other. It was just a join tour, so you join whatever people are there and you go with them to whatever. And it was horrible. The whole day was just a terrible experience because everything was packed. You couldn't get any photos without 300 people in the background. We stopped at a beach for lunch, and it was shitty dried fried rice in a styrofoam container with 500 other people I didn't know,
Right,
and
right.
it was just that. I think that's the kind of tourism that they're talking about that doesn't.
Oh, maybe.
It's empty calories. And
so that is, okay, I like that phrase. I mean, that is superficial.
Yeah.
It sounds like in this case, it wasn't dopamine for you though. I mean, obviously it didn't work.
But it's got to be dopamine for some people. Otherwise they wouldn't have dozens and dozens of boats every day packed with people. Right.
Right. That's valid. That's totally valid. Well, let's circle back then. If this explanation of dopamine tourism is bogus, which you and I seem to be on the same page, then what could explain the downturn? Well, like I mentioned, the earthquake. You and I both looked at a couple different articles. Apparently, the Thai baht is a little bit stronger than it's been before. So when people come here, their spending power is decreased, another factor. But in particular with Chinese tourists, I don't even know the details of the whole story, and for this show, it doesn't matter that much. But there was a pretty horrific scandal involving a prominent Chinese. Were they an influencer or a movie star or?
I think he was sort of a celebrity, a TV star or a movie star.
Yeah, and more or less, they were in Thailand on a holiday and they got kidnapped. And so this is a thing that I've read about before. I wouldn't say it's endemic in Thailand, but it's a problem. It's essentially where some wealthy tourist gets grabbed and the kidnappers want them to transfer money. So I guess that's just what kidnapping is. But it's not like kidnapping, we're going to contact your parents to pay. It's like they grab you and then they're like, well, you got to transfer us this money or give us your Bitcoin or whatever.
Right.
And so so I guess that's pretty much what kidnappers do. And apparently it was a huge story in China. So it was a huge scandal in China that Thailand is not safe, and I personally, so my theory is that it's actually, I don't think it's some problem with Thai tourism in general. I think it's these events. I think it's I'm not sure I'd call it a perfect storm, but I mean, I think if you look at the data, Western tourism is up. Western tourism is on track that they expected. It's really Asian tourism that's down. So I think it's these negative news stories. I think it's the earthquake. I think it's the Thai baht. I think it's the security matters. And I'm not trying to minimize the security matters. Like it's, I would be scared too. Like if I was a Swedish guy thinking of bringing my family to Thailand, and then I read in the news that some Swedish dad got kidnapped in Thailand, I might not come.
Yeah, right. And this article says arrivals from China have fallen 33% so far this year after a scam gang kidnapped Chinese actor Wang Xiang near the Thai border in January. Wang's ordeal went viral in the mainland, prompting thousands of cancellations as mainland tourists opted for regional competitors, including Japan and Singapore, that they perceive as safer.
30%, that's insane. I think that's
huge.
That explains almost everything. I mean, the earthquake probably explains 1%. Maybe maybe the Thai baht explains like 2%. You and I, because we're Westerners, our focus is on Westerners. When when tourist pops into my head, I picture a guy from Sweden. But obviously, like Chinese tourists make up a huge amount of the tourism in Thailand.
Right. I think the phrase you used was actually pretty accurate, a perfect storm, because you've got that going. You've got the social media, which is very like the insular in Thailand, or in China, like this, the Chinese social media. So it spreads like wildfire over there. You've got other countries competing for the tourism dollar. And then there's the broader story of the scam centers, which are not just taking Chinese people too, but there's a huge problem with Cambodia. Like one of our former guests, Dominic Falder, has written extensively about it in Nikkei Asia and stuff like that.
That's right. So, listeners, this is a bit of a different issue. Maybe we actually probably should do another show on it. But there's a huge problem in both Myanmar and Cambodia with scam centers where it involves like some really creepy stuff where it's often Chinese, not only Chinese, but you get poor people looking for a job and they get offered a job in Myanmar or Cambodia, and it ends up being essentially slave labor where their passport gets seized and they're forced to run scams like on the internet, and it's a huge problem. And I think the kidnapping of that Chinese actor was somehow connected to these criminal gangs. Yeah. Essentially, they
basically picked the wrong guy.
Yeah. Basically, Myanmar and Cambodia, just to be straight, there's a lot of criminal organized crime in both Myanmar and Cambodia. Like a lot of organized criminal gangs, and it seeps over into Thailand and affects people. It can affect people visiting Thailand.
But the other part of that perfect storm is that Japan is safer. Singapore is cleaner.
For sure.
That's part of the charm of Thailand, right? Is that it's a bit grungy and it's a bit chaotic, and that's why we like it. But if you're looking for a solid, stable, dependable, predictable vacation,
that's not here.
And you read that story, you're like, well, shit. Like Singapore is always going to be Singapore because they've got it tied down.
The more I think about it, the more I think this dopamine tourism explanation is just dumb. I don't buy it. I really think it's these other, and I'm not dismissing the other concerns. I think the safety thing, it is an issue, and it's not even just that one event. There was an event, what was it, a year or two ago, where another kind of high-so tourist got shaken down for a bribe. Like she had a
The Korean
actress. She had a vape, and there's anti-vape laws in Thailand that they selectively enforce against people they think who have money. So if you're an average Thai kid and you have a vape, they ignore you. But if you look like a wealthy tourist and you have a vape, then they shake you down for $1,000.
Right. I'm going to push back a little bit though on how you think the dopamine tourism thing is not really legit. I think it kind of is, because that dopamine tourism, let's define it as the sort of the quick in and out, quick turnaround conveyor belt tourism, where they get as many people in and out as possible to make as much money as quickly as possible. I think that also has a detrimental effect, especially on environment. And when you're talking about places that have become over touristed, like then that also affects the repeat tourist. Like if I was a normal tourist and I went on that boat trip that I went on and I went back to Canada, I'd be like, oh, my trip to Thailand sucked. Like I just spent time on a beach with 5,000 other people. There's nothing special about it. That would have a negative effect too. And I would be out there talking smack about Thailand. And, you multiply that by 10,000.
I'm not defending conveyor belt tourism. I'm just not sure that explains the downturn. The question is, the issue is what has caused this unexpected downturn? And are you sure that there's more of that conveyor belt tourism here than in Vietnam or Malaysia or Japan?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I do think those countries are more organized, but that doesn't mean they don't have that same thing. But yeah, I would never defend that. Like that type of mass market, like huge groups of people, and your takedown of it is perfectly valid. But I'm not sure that's always existed in Thailand. Like it doesn't. The bottom line is post-COVID, there was a very quick jump, and like we were headed towards a perfect recovery, and then now we've had this downturn, and I think it's because of these events. That's just my take.
Yeah, you might be right. And you're right. It has always existed, but always existing when there's 25 million tourists per year versus 45 million tourists a year. That's
right.
A significant
I agree with you
difference.
100% on over tourism. I mean, growth cannot be the main goal. It becomes counterproductive over time.
Yeah, we saw that when they shut down Maya Bay, so the environment could recover, right? And that worked really well. So I'm all for that. But you also said that the European market is up too, and that's what the story says too. It says tourists from the U.S. have spiked 12% this year through May to more than 625,000. Arrivals from Europe have jumped nearly 18% to more than 3 million. And then there's, of course, the White Lotus effect, which they have to mention by law, I think. That's also having an effect.
No, the interesting thing about the White Lotus effect, that one of the articles, you and I both looked at multiple articles because we do our research. They were saying that the White Lotus effect has worked for Westerners, but not for Asians. So, it's not that Asians didn't like the show. It's just that apparently, going to the article, it's like an Asian sees the stuff in White Lotus and they're like, yeah, like Asia. Like for them, they're like, okay, we like the show, but it's not some cool thing. Like this is just this is a beach. There's some monkeys, So they're and so apparently the White Lotus effect is primarily for Westerners.
Well, I wonder if the White Lotus effect in Italy when they filmed season 2 in Sicily had any effect on people in Spain. Like they're like, that's Italy. It's just I've been there a million times. There's nothing special about it.
Yeah, that's a very cool topic. I wonder if Sicily saw an increase in maybe Asian tourists who were like, look at Sicily, it's so cool, it's so different. We got to go there. Right. And then Europeans were like, yeah, it's Sicily. Like maybe there was no White Lotus effect. Maybe there was no White Lotus effect for Europeans.
That's an interesting question. Yeah. I think one of the big takeaways too is I'm glad people are starting to ask these questions. Like we need more, I hate to use the word real because every tourism is real, or high quality. That's also lame. Like there needs to be a greater variety, of more of a breadth of the types of tourists and activities that tourists can do here.
For sure.
Stu from Travelfish always cites the thousands of studies that have shown that quote unquote low quality slow tourists are actually more beneficial to the economy than the quick dopamine tourists that come in for a speedboat tour and a trip to Samui and out again.
Agreed.
Because they travel slowly, they might spend less per day, but they're here longer and they put the money directly into the local communities versus some conglomerate run by whatever. So
for sure, when you get off the beaten path, when you go to, let's say, the Rocket Festival in Yasadome, which we talked about on the bonus show, which is available for patrons only. No, but that's the kind of thing, like what we talked about on the bonus show. Like you went to this Rocket Festival, it's off the beaten path, but it's the kind of thing that's very Thai and very unique. Whereas, being on a beach, I love Thai beaches, but I wouldn't call them unique. That's like there's beautiful beaches in the Maldives and in many countries, whereas that particular Rocket Festival is just a uniquely Thai thing. And then, of course, if you go there, all your money is going to go to local people. It's not going to go to some international hotel chain like the Hilton in Phuket or something.
Right. That's right. And again, we've said it on the show before. Thailand doesn't have a lock on friendly people, good food,
That's right.
nice beaches.
But it does have a lock it does have a lock on Thai culture.
That's exactly it. And I'm glad people are recognizing that people can spend their money elsewhere. And it's, of course, they're not just recognizing it. It's been talked about for many, many years. But it's just that the shallowness of a lot of these activities, it's not doing much for the long tail of
Agreed.
selling Thailand as a cultural destination.
Agreed.
Because they can go anywhere and get that cheap stuff. So play up Thai culture, enhance Thai culture, promote Thai culture. It's not all about soft power and Millie with her mango and sticky rice. It's got to go deeper than that, I think. I don't have any solutions. I'm just saying.
I agree.
Anyway, so I think both of us agree that the article raises some good points, but it's also needs a bit more nuance. And also we should mention that we're reading a translated one from Thai, so maybe there's a lot of nuance that's lost there as well. But I like that that people are thinking about this, and I think it's important to revisit this topic because that's how you make things better and more appealing.
For sure.
More sustainable.
You know, it's super competitive. Tourism is super competitive. Thailand needs a unique selling point. They have to ask themselves, why should people come here instead of Vietnam? So I'm glad they're asking these questions.
Yeah, me too. Rising tide lifts all boats. So let's lift the Thailand boat. That's Greg finishing the end of every episode with a motivational quote. All right. Good chat. All right. Let's get into some Would You Rather, where one of us picks two contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. Now, Ed, I've got an interesting hypothetical for you here.
Okay.
And this is not remotely possible, but let's assume that you were going to have to live on one type of food in your country or where you live. Would you choose to subsist solely on Thai food made in America or American food made in Thailand?
Ooh. That's kind of tricky, man. That's kind of deep.
It is kind of. It's a total hypothetical, but I mean, you know how they always say like, oh yeah, this Thai restaurant in New York is good, but you really should taste the food in Thailand.
No, I like
the flip side of that is like,
sure.
I've had good hamburgers I've had good hot dogs in Thailand, but you really ought to try a street hot dog in New York.
Good. No, it's a good question. Like, do Americans do Thai food better than Thai people do American food?
Yeah, that's a much more intelligent way to say it.
I'm here to translate for Greg.
Thanks, man.
Oh, wow. That is a great question. It's funny. Listeners, you probably know that I came to Thailand fairly spontaneously, didn't know much about Thailand before I came here. But I used to go to Thai restaurants occasionally in the States, like most people, and I understood that the difference between Chinese food and Thai food. And I did like Thai food a lot before I came here, but I really didn't know it. It's like I wasn't any type of aficionado, but I did like the Thai food there. But the thing about American, this actually gets back to our previous show we did on Western food that has been adopted by Thai people, because there's good burgers here, there's good pizza here. This is tough because I'm a huge fan of Thai food. But man, I'm just gonna say this. I think Thai people do Western food better than America does Thai food. The bottom line is great. I mean, even if I just restricted myself to American food, like I said, there's great burgers here, great pizza. But then if you expand it, there's killer Italian food here. So yeah, if I had to rely on like borrowed cuisine, it would probably be on Western food here than Thai food.
Versus Thai food.
I know there's great Thai restaurants in the States, and you and I both have friends in Canada and the U.S. who are restaurateurs and Thai food experts. There's some killer Thai places in the States, but it's actually hit or miss. Like, so my hometown, which is Cleveland, Ohio, when I go back, sometimes my friends ask like they want to go to a Thai place, and I don't go into the details, but I know 4 Thai restaurants in my hometown, and there's only one that I'm like, this is really good. Like this is like real Thai food. So it's about 1 out of 4.
Right.
The others are like clear facsimiles. You know, it's like you're like
Yeah, like using mushroom soup and tom.
yeah.
tom kha
It's just
gai or
you're like,
something.
okay, this is kind of Thai. Yeah, you know, yeah. So yeah. So this question, I like it. If I had to choose one, I think Thais do Western food better.
I kind of would agree. I think Asian or Thai food is much more nuanced and relies on a
Thai food might be harder. Maybe that's it. Thai food is just harder.
harder. It takes more skill to cook a really, really
Right.
good Thai dish than it does a really, really good
Yeah, yeah.
hamburger, I think. So, yeah, I would much rather have Western food
Yeah,
than Thailand
good
as
question. I mean, we really have the best of both worlds. That's the bottom line.
well. Yeah. We are lucky.
A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website and connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. I'm on Blue Sky at BKK Greg. Thank you for listening, folks, and we will see you back here next week.
No doubt.